I never expected the poor dishwasher to shock the millionaire chefs with her unbelievable talent. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The steam curled like smoke around me. The clattering of dishes echoed, creating a rhythm to my frantic heart. I stood there, trembling hands gripping the sink, eyes wide as the chaos unfolded. I was invisible, just a cog in the machine, scrubbing away while the world of culinary art brewed just beyond the washroom door. There was a party that night, a gala, bursting with clinking glasses and murmurs of the elite. The chefs, draped in their pristine whites, were legends. I remember watching through the grimy glass, feeling like a ghost in a haunted house. My family depended on my meager paycheck. Mom needed her meds, and I had to keep the lights on. Each plate I scrubbed was a tiny reminder of what was at stake. Just as I finished a pile of greasy pans, I heard an unexpected sound. Laughter. The chefs were gathered around a table, showcasing their creations. My heart raced, fueled by a blend of fear and longing. They were so talented. I felt a pang in my chest, a reminder of my own dreams I buried deep under the weight of survival. But then, that sound vanished. Silence fell like a thick fog. I leaned closer, curiosity pulling me in. Suddenly, a voice broke through the stillness, calling for someone to taste the dish. A fellow dishwasher, nervous and unsure, volunteered. My stomach nodded. I watched as the chef presented a beautiful plate, colors vibrant and inviting. The dish was exquisite, crafted with care, but as the first forkful was tasted, it turned into a travesty. The chefs grimaced. Murphy, the head chef, was not pleased. "It's ruined," he barked. My heart sank for my coworker, but then something else sparked inside me, a nameless urge to act. Before I knew it, the words broke free. My voice rang out against my better judgment, "Wait." Every head turned to me, stunned, disbelief etched in their faces. I felt heat creeping up my neck. In that split second, with a racing heart and a lump in my throat, I knew what I had to do. I had to show them. But could I? Fingers trembling, I stepped forward and grabbed the last plate of leftovers. An odd silence filled the air. Gasps whispered from the onlookers. The millionaire chefs watched, their expressions unreadable. Did I really dare to show them my hidden talent? What if they laughed? Or worse, what if they were disappointed? As I approached the table, the world outside faded, lights blurred into a radiant haze. I felt every heartbeat pulse in my ears, the smell of garlic and herbs wrapped around me. My hands moved faster than my brain could keep up. I was in a dance, swirling between fear and exhilaration. The moment was electric, charged with possibility. Before I could think of retreating, I placed the plate down. A hush crept over the crowd. The chefs leaned in, eyes wide but skeptical. What would they say? Would they scorn me? Or could I really change everything with this single moment? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In that charged silence, as the chefs leaned in closer, I felt the weight of their gazes like a warm blanket suffocating me. In the very marrow of my bones, I wished for invisibility again, to shrink away from the expectant stares. My heart pounded in anticipation, fear battling hope within me. Would they see me? The real me, beyond this stained apron and soap-slicked hands? Murphy, his brow furrowed, picked up his fork slowly. The clinking sound echoed through the kitchen like a death knell. He hesitated as he took the first bite, and I imagined time slowing to a crawl. The other chefs held their breath, their faces unreadable. I envisioned their disbelief if I failed, their scorn echoing louder than the clattering dishes once did. The plates piled high behind me felt suddenly heavy with the weight of my dreams. With a flicker of uncertainty, Murphy's eyes widened. I couldn't tell if it was delight or disdain. The second stretched into an eternity. As he swallowed, the tension thickened in the air. Just as I wrestled between hope and despair, his lips curled into a small smile, the first crack in a veneer built on years of superiority. "This is surprisingly good," he said, though the words felt laden, as if he struggled to digest his own surprise. The air shifted, and I could sense the murmurs among the chefs. Hope ignited within me, though it felt fragile, like a candle flickering in the dark. They exchanged glances, their expressions morphing from skepticism to intrigue. Before I could bask in the moment, however, an all too familiar voice broke through like glass shattering on tiles. "What is this?" It was Elizabeth, the sous chef, her tone dripping with disdain. She pushed her way forward, eyes narrow, arms crossed tightly against her chest. "Is this another joke? You think you can just waltz in here?" and she sneered, cutting off the applause that was starting to bubble up. I felt my heart plummet. Her words were venom, and they struck with a pointed barbed cruelness. The bubbling excitement that had just ignited now simmered with doubt. But before she could continue, a tall chef beside her interjected. "Why not let her explore? This is something different, she deserves a shot." His voice carried a warmth that wrapped around my fragile spirit. I didn't know his name, but in that moment, he felt like a lifeline. The tension thickened again. I could see the conflicted expressions on the faces of the other chefs. Elizabeth's sneer faltered, surprise casting a shadow across her features. An inexperienced dishwasher? What could she possibly know? "Let her try," the tall chef encouraged, stepping forward, a guard against her hostility. I breathed in deeply, grasping at the tiny thread of support he offered. Before I could gather my thoughts, another chef nodded in solidarity. "Come on, let her share her passion. There's potential in what she's done." Feeling a swell of courage, I stammered, "Two can do more than this. I just need a chance." I glanced at the tall chef who had defended me. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of understanding that stirred a forgotten fire within me. Elizabeth scoffed, but only half-heartedly. The tide was turning among the chefs, and I seized the moment. "I can show you what I can do," I said, each word laced with memory of dinners shared at home, notes scrawled on napkins, dreams pushed aside for responsibility. "Let me cook just once," the chefs began murmuring, the winds of change spiraling through the room like a storm gathering strength. Elizabeth's mask slipped for a moment, revealing vulnerability before she stormed away, refusing to accept defeat gracefully. As I spoke, I felt the burden of my family's needs pressing against my chest. Remembering my mother's frail figure, her eyes lit only by the promise of a brighter future, I knew this was for her. The chaos of my thoughts coalesced into a singular resolve. Then, with the heat of a new determination gripping my desires, I began outlining my plan for the dish I would create. Ingredients flowed from my thoughts like art spilling across a canvas. Every element mattered, and I could feel their eyes igniting with curiosity. But just as inspiration surged, the kitchen's phone rang, cutting through the moment. A few moments later, silence enveloped once again. The kitchen manager received grim news, eyes pinched tightly. A bulk order had come and meant for the gala that would require all hands on deck, and seconds later, I felt the air thicken with pressure. All must return to their stations. He barked, restoring order to the chaos. A wave of anxiety washed over me as the chefs dispersed, leaving me standing there, verging on despair. My heart sank when I realized I might lose this opportunity before it had even truly begun, but as I turned to leave, the tall chef caught my attention, waving me over with urgency. "Well, still find a way, don't lose hope," he murmured, before slipping me a slip of paper as chaos reigned around us. I quickly tucked it into my pocket. "Tonight after the gala, just be ready." With that, I watched him blend back into the fray, and my mind raced. Did I dare stay? The fires of ambition were rekindling in my chest, yet uncertainty whispered treachery in my ears. The world outside the kitchen, the one filled with dim lights and dwindling hope, beckoned me. But just as I was about to retreat back to obscurity, a guttural yelp echoed from the kitchen. I turned, my heart hammering. A mass of startled chefs scrambled, clattering utensils and shouting varied protests. The moment suddenly felt like an explosive flash, as if everything I had ever worked for was collapsing around me, and then I saw her, my co-worker, stumbling as she lost her footing, a tray of dishes flying towards the floor, the sharp crack of ceramic shattering like glass in my ears. In that instant, all the ambitions I'd nurtured collided with reality, and I knew I had one last shot to prove myself. With a surge of adrenaline, I raced forward, not thinking, just acting. It was either now or never. I surged forward, my instincts taking over as I reached for the tumbling tray. The world around me slowed, the turmoil of the kitchen becoming a backdrop for my single-minded mission. My fingers grazed the edges of the discs as I barely managed to secure one before it hit the ground, sending shards scattering into a spray of porcelain shrapnel. The chaos froze in place, exchanging gasps for the noise of clattering dishes and hasty movements. I stumbled back, breathless, heart racing. My cheeks flushed with the heat of embarrassment and adrenaline, but I didn't care that I had made a scene. I was alive, and I was here. Are you okay? It was the tall chef, his voice breaking through the shock that filled the air. He appeared at my side, concern etched into his features. I nodded, though I wasn't sure how coherent I seemed. My hands trembled slightly, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. Nice reflexes, he said with a hint of amusement, but his gaze was serious as he pointed towards the remnants of the tray. But be careful, you could get hurt. Elizabeth pushed her way through the remaining crowd, her expression transforming from disdain to pure disbelief as she eyed me. How clumsy can you get? This is a kitchen, not a circus. Her voice sliced through my moment of triumph, but I refused to let it pierce my confidence that I am not clumsy. I shot back, my voice stronger than I felt. I'm just learning how to stand my ground. There was a flicker in her eyes, and perhaps just perhaps she was beginning to see me as something other than a mere nuisance. The chaos resumed, but I stayed on the edge, trying to gauge the atmosphere of the frantic chefs hopping from task to task. I noticed that some were casting quick glances in my direction, their expressions softened, tempered not just by concern for the moment's commotion but by a newfound curiosity. As I began to tidy up the remnants of the fallen dishes, the tall chef stayed close by, deftly glancing over my shoulder, offering gentle encouragement. We worked together in that brief moment of silence amidst the storm of tasks. Do you bake? He asked suddenly, shifting gears in the cacophony. Not much. Just the little things my dad taught me, I admitted, feeling a smile tug at my lips. Simple stuff, cookies mostly. That I can see it in your eyes, the spark of creativity. Cookies need heart as much as any dish, he said, as if our conversation was a comforting undercurrent to the chaos. Maybe we could collaborate. I could show you some techniques. Really? I blinked, surprised by the kindness radiating from him. Two would love that. Before more could be said, a voice rang out from the other end of the kitchen. The head chef had entered, his booming presence commanding attention. Listen up. He bellowed, drawing eyes from every corner. We have a gala tonight, and those dishes we prepared, they need to be perfect. I expect nothing less. The fiery determination in his voice rekindled my ambition, igniting the concoctions of ideas swirling in my mind. I could almost taste the brilliance of what I wanted to create, the intertwining of flavors that danced in my head like stars colliding. As I moved to join the other chefs, I felt a mixture of determination and trepidation. Would I really have the chance to showcase my vision later? Just as I seized the corner where the herbs were stored, I spotted my slip of paper peeking out of my pocket. Heart thrumming tightly, I hastily read the message. Wanna sneak in together? It'll be at the back door after the gala prep. It was the tall chef reaching out, ready to be my accomplice in this culinary journey, but before excitement could swell, Elizabeth's voice cut through my cascade of thoughts once more. You really think you're going to be part of this? Get it through your head, you're not one of us. Her eyes flared, the jealousy darkening her tone. I could see this was more than just about dishes, it was about a fight for recognition. That I opened my mouth to respond, but the head chef's command rang again, shaking the tension firmly in place. Back to stations, I returned to my station. Suppressing an internal tempest, saturated by Elizabeth's challenge. My heart was a storm, laden with expectation and fear, the path ahead unknown, fraught with obstacles not just from without but from within. Tension coursed through me as I followed the routine, yet in the smallest moments, I found clarity. A chop here, a simmer there, it felt like I was orchestrating a symphony, each ingredient connecting me closer to a dare I had yet to grasp. Then, as the kitchen buzzed with preparation, deep in concentration, I caught a glimpse of the tall chef providing a helping hand to another struggling colleague. His kindness spilled over, a stark contrast to Elizabeth's poison. My spirits lifted for an instant, but just as quickly, my heart sank again, striving in a place that sometimes felt overwhelmingly out of reach. With the gala looming just around the corner, shadows of doubt crept back in. What if I wasn't ready? And when the weight of insecurity embedded itself in my mind, the loud clang of a metal pot jolted me. The head chef had dropped it, alarming everyone into silence once more. His face contorted with frustration. "I can't do this. None of you can," he exclaimed, the rare vulnerability cracking beneath his authoritative exterior. The kitchen held its breath, and just as whispers ricocheted around us, I found myself inching closer to the front, my heart thundering in unison with the next revelation. Perhaps I was meant to brush against that wall of fear, with all the courage I could muster, not just for me, but for him as well. "Maybe we can," I declared, and as all eyes turned to me, the realization hung in the air, a spark igniting yet another storm. My voice resonated in the stillness, trembling with a raw kind of certainty I'd rarely felt before. "Together, we can make it extraordinary," and then I paused, the weight of my own words settling thickly over us all. Would they back me up? Or was I risking it all for nothing? As uncertainty reigned around me, my heart raced, teetering on the edge of possibility. The tension swirled like steam rising from simmering pots, my declaration lingering heavily in the air. I held my breath, feeling vulnerable under the collective scrutiny. The eyes that had previously glinted with skepticism now flickered with something else: curiosity. Hope. Before I could decipher the silence that followed, the head chef's sharp gaze bore into me, demanding respect as well as acknowledgement. "What did you say?" His voice held a mixture of disbelief and intrigue, softening as he gestured for the cacophony of sounds around us to quiet. "I said I think we can do this together. I know we can create something extraordinary," I finally replied, my voice steadier than I felt, a singular resolve unclenching the knots of doubt within me. A subtle murmur quivered through the team. The tall chef stepped forward, a spark of understanding lighting in his eyes. "She's right. We all have a hand in this. This kitchen reflects all of us, our skills and imagination." He locked eyes with me, his intense gaze encouraging. "We can elevate this dish. Let's fine-tune it, you know, add your flair that I can help too," volunteered a quieter chef, his voice drowned amid the collective energy radiating from the kitchen. The head chef remained stoic, an inscrutable expression on his face, but he seemed to ponder my words. "Teamwork is vital. But why should we trust you? You're still new here." "Because," I shot back more impulsively than I planned, "I believe we all started somewhere. I may lack experience, but I have heart. And right now, that's all I can offer. Doesn't that count for something?" With the room enveloped in silence once again, Elizabeth snorted, her disdain cutting through the moment. "Are you seriously thinking your heart will save us? You're just making a fool out of yourself." Before I could respond, the tall chef interjected. "Actually, it could be what saves us from mediocrity. This isn't just about being a professional chef, it's about passion, creativity, and injecting the essence of ourselves into the food we prepare. That's what distinguishes us in this industry." Perhaps, just perhaps, I was capturing what they needed to hear, fueling the pulsating energy sparking within the room. I felt a swelling blend of vulnerability and defiance, my heart beating louder than ever. Hope had become my unexpected ally amidst Elizabeth's venomous presence. I turned my focus back to the head chef, waiting for him to respond, my pulse quickening. After what felt like an eternity, his austere expression softened marginally. Fine. One attempt then. Show me what you can dose how all of us. But understand, failure here. It's not an option. That I nodded rapidly, relief and adrenaline surging through my body. I won't let you down, I promised earnestly. As the hustle resumed around us, I caught the tall chef's eye again. Let's do this collaboratively. I want your pointers. We can exchange ideas as the minutes tick down. The fireworks of excitement fizzled through the kitchen, the competitive spirit reigniting as chefs scurried to gather supplies and ingredients. The head chef maneuvered through the chaos, housing a focused intensity that spurred the team to deliver brilliant performances. This felt like a turning point, a defining moment that could break through the walls built around me. That we scoured the pantry together, pulling out unusual pairings that ignited sparks of ideas in my mind. Ground ginger, caramelized onions, a pinch of sea salt. Each ingredient felt as significant as the next in defining the dish we were about to create. Consider layering flavors, the tall chef encouraged, demonstrating how to balance sweetness with acidity, guiding my hands as we worked side by side. As I whisked together the ingredients, a smile broke through my concentration. It's like dancing, isn't it? The way each component harmonizes. He returned my grin, his playful spirit lifting me with each small victory, each dynamic shift in our creation. Exactly. Cooking is a dance, but even more so, it's about finding rhythm with the team. With every moment spent in a rhythm of collaborative energy, I recognized something magical unfolding. Tension had ebbed, replaced with a burgeoning camaraderie. Yet, amidst all this, shadows of doubt still lurked at the corners of my heart, ready to pounce with every negative recollection or snide remark from Elizabeth, who stood at a distance, watching with disapproval. As we plated our creation, the intricate layers lay before us, vibrant and full of life. I took a step back, admiration evident in my expression. This was not just my idea anymore, it was our suffusion of each influence, creativity binding us like a tapestry. I glanced at the clock. Time was running thin. Get ready, the head chef barked, his voice steadying us once more. Presentation is key. Once the guests have arrived, you'll want all of us to shine. That my heart raced, the memories of my past failures threatening to cascade in and drown me. I swallowed hard. If this was to shatter, if I was to be exposed as an imposter, everything I'd fought for would slip through my fingers. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed as Elizabeth purposefully dropped a tray of ingredients, and others paused in surprise. Oops! She exclaimed sarcastically, feigning innocence before turning to me. Let's see what happens when you really try to create something special under pressure. I braced myself. Had that been intentional, an attempt to undermine everything I had built in mere hours? Elizabeth seemed to take pleasure from degrading our hard work, and I inhaled sharply, the weight of her challenges pushing heavily down upon my shoulders. Just then, the tall chef caught my eye, his expression resolute yet softened by kindness. He stepped closer. Ignore her. Focus. We're in this together, right? As the entrance doors swung open, revealing the sleek silhouettes of galagoers eager for our dishes, a collective pulse surged through the kitchen crew. It was showtime. But just as adrenaline surged through me, the head chef's voice rang out, in a low, urgent command cutting through the noise. We have a critical situation. One of the sous chefs has gone missing. Grace, we need you to step up and help fill in. My heart sank, the anticipation of a breakthrough eclipsed by the swirling uncertainty of being thrown into uncharted waters. Would I be ready? As the clock ticked down towards the revealing moment of judgment, the undeniable whisper echoed within me, perhaps this was my moment to define my journey or watch it dissolve in failure. That I turned to the tall chef, the options swirling in my mind like the final seconds of a countdown to destiny, and as the world blurred around me, I had to decide: would I rise, or would I let Elizabeth's disdain drown me once again? The atmosphere was electric, with anxiety woven tightly around the exuberant excitement of the kitchen. I stared at the tall chef, his eyes gleaming with encouragement, but the weight of the head chef's announcement left me reeling. A sous chef missing? The realization sunk in like a stone, the ground falling away from beneath me. I am not ready to take on that level yet, I stammered, my voice faltering against the ebbing cacophony. Imposter syndrome clawed at my throat, tightening its grip while Elizabeth's smirk lingered like a bitter taste at the back of my mind. Look, you're already part of this team, he replied, his tone serious yet warm, urging me to see the truth behind his words. We need all hands on deck. You don't have to be perfect. Just give it your best, and remember, breathe. We're counting on you. The tolling of the kitchen timer sent a shiver down my spine. In mere seconds, my world flipped upside down as I stepped awkwardly into the role thrust upon me, surrounded by a vortex of colleagues bustling around, each of them clasping the weight of expectations. Well, Elizabeth called out, her voice dripping with disdain, I guess it's time to see how heart holds up against reality, doesn't it? I shut my eyes for a mere moment, blocking out her venomous barbs and concentrating on my own heartbeat, that relentless drum echoing courage. The kitchen smelled of roasting garlic and tangy citrus, my senses awakened against the oppressive fears that had begun to cloud my judgment. Grabbing an apron, I wiped my shaky hands across its fabric, a small action grounding me. Watching the chefs around me, I could feel their willingness to help accelerate my resolve. The camaraderie served as a buoy, lifting me above the rising tide of anxiety. All right, Grace. We're going to need you on salads, there's plenty of fresh produce left, just get creative. The tall chef guided, the urgency driving him forward, his faith lighting a pathway amidst chaos. I nodded, heart pounding, but the culinary enthusiasm began to simmer as ideas rushed in like a tide spiraling upwards. With clenched fists, I made my way to the salad station, grabbing knife and board, fingertips brushing freshly harvested arugula and vibrant heirloom tomatoes. Each ingredient felt like a warm embrace, a chance to channel my doubts into something nourishing. Blood pumping, I began slicing, jigsawing the chaos in the kitchen into concentric circles of creativity. Each chop rang out a minor heartbeat. It kept me focused, my mind straying momentarily away from Elizabeth's critical glances, away from the fear that threatened to subdue my hard-fought triumph. I tossed a handful of roasted nuts into the mix for texture, a drizzle of tart balsamic vinegar punctuated the vibrant colors before me. As I worked feverishly, I caught glimpses of my colleagues stepping aside to support one another among the pulse of laughter, criticism, and encouragement. The tension lessened and flared, but it was a pulse of collective energy, reveling in the heat of our combined efforts. Suddenly, just as I was about to plate a cascade of colors, I felt a solid surge of hands gripped around my arms, pulling me slightly backwards. You okay? Asked the quieter chef, his voice gentle yet intense. Eyes. Just a moment. I think I can get this ready. I replied, my determination surging back. His gaze held an endless thread of understanding. It was as if he could see straight into my whirlwind of thoughts, offering the silent solidarity I didn't even know I craved. Before I could express my gratitude, the head chef darted past us, his expression imperious and restless. We need a taste test, everyone, be ready. He commanded, his voice cutting through the air with razor-like clarity. That I plucked the plate from the counter, my creation feeling fragile, a mirror to my confidence. The colors contrasted like emotions battling within me, joy mingled with trepidation. I presented it before the head chef, a tension blooming between us like a flower daring to bloom in the harshest of climates. That he took a bite, chewing slowly, his expression carefully molded yet inscrutable. Time stood still, the air heavy with anticipation, every heart in the room suspended in a moment of hope. After a beat that felt like a lifetime, he nodded, the corners of his mouth nudging upwards. Not bad, he remarked, his voice low yet approving. Hope swelled through my chest, a fiery ember igniting deep within. Just a moment, I thought. Just to feel this connection, this validation, but before I could bask fully in the triumph, a shriek broke the surreal bubble encasing me. What do you mean he's missing? The dinner party is about to start. Elizabeth's voice jabbed through the kitchen, her panic tilting toward chaos. Her frantic energy ricocheted off the walls, fanning the flames of uncertainty. What's going on? I asked, barely above a whisper, my heart dropping at the prospect of new troubles looming. A fellow chef turned to me, his face pale. The sous chef, the one who was separate from the rest of us, he ran off. He hesitated, his voice trembling. He didn't show up for work today at all. The kitchen is understaffed on one of the busiest nights we've had. My pulse quickened, the anxiety rising within me again like an uncontrollable tide. So what do we do? I murmured, unsure how I could possibly take on any more. We pieced together the remaining roles, but my stomach churned, the magnitude of our situation sunk its claws into my psyche, eclipsing the brief moments of hope. If the sous chef's absence cast a shadow, that meant the rest of us had to bear an even heavier load in unison. As the clock ticked down toward the moment of reckoning, I overheard fragmented conversations and snatched glances of worry around the kitchen, each chef grappling with the reality of servitude behind the invisible walls built by pressure. Just as the impulse surged, I felt a tight grip at my should-era reminder. The tall chef locked eyes with me again, and this time the heaviness of his expression was laced with urgency, but also determination. We can't let this drag us down. Approach it with heart. It can be done. We have what it takes. His words ignited that ember once more, but in the very next moment, the door swung open, and an unfamiliar figure strode into the kitchen, an unexpected face, poised and confident, but the room felt like it gasped collectively. Could this be the missing sous chef? My heart raced as what felt like destiny hurled itself at us. I could sense the oceans of chaos stirring. My beat had just been torn apart, as shadows of uncertainty edged ever closer. What would it mean to shift dynamics in an instant like this? Would this missing piece turn out to be nothing short of a miracle, or would it deepen the cracks of conflict we'd barely begun to mend? The answer spun in the air, electric and pregnant with possibilities, leaving me teetering on the brink of despair and inspiration. The atmosphere shifted abruptly as the unfamiliar figure strode confidently through the kitchen, the tension hanging thick in the air like smoke from a recent fire. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to process what this could mean. The figure's presence was a wild card, tossing our already fragile team dynamics into a chaotic whirl. Would this be our saving grace or our downfall? The tall chef stepped forward, tension etched across his brow as he approached the newcomer. I watched from my station, heart racing, hands trembling with the uncertainty of it all. The newcomer was a woman, her dark hair pulled back into an elegant bun, revealing sharp features that radiated authority. She was wearing a crisp white chef's jacket, but it was her eyes, sparkling with a fierce determination, that held the attention of everyone in the kitchen. "Are you the missing sous chef?" the tall chef asked, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of disbelief. "That's right. I'm Amelia," she replied, her tone direct yet filled with warmth. "I heard there was a crisis here. Let's not waste time. Where do you need me most?" As she spoke, determination washed over me, a splash of color against the grayscale uncertainty enveloping us. The head chef, initially taken aback, quickly rallied his composure. "Salads and entrees are both in need of immediate support. The dinner service is moments away from beginning," he instructed, gesturing efficiently to the various stations. That I felt a twitch of hope as Amelia paved her way through the fray, effortlessly sliding in among my colleagues. She took charge of a workspace next to mine, her presence a grounding force. My earlier anxiety about the escalation of chaos dissipated slightly in the face of her confidence. "What's your name?" she asked, washing her hands quickly at the sink, but looked over at me, her eyes sparkling with camaraderie. "Grace," I said, still grappling with disbelief. "There's a lot going on, and I barely handled the salad station before you showed up." Amelia offered me a radiant smile, the kind that could unlock the deadbolt on a heavy door. "Breathe, Grace. We're all in this together. Let's show them just how well we can work as a team." The rush of reality pulsing through the kitchen pounded in time with my heartbeat. As we lost ourselves in the fervent energy of our work, I felt the butterflies stir within me. The camaraderie shifted. It was as though we were no longer just individual chefs fighting against the clock, but rather pieces of a puzzle aligning perfectly in place. With Amelia by my side, I began plating vibrant salads, her voice directing with precision and ease, concocting unexpected pairings with a hint of flair. "Add a sprinkle of sea salt, it brings out the flavor of the tomatoes," she advised, and I did, not hesitating, the rhythm of my movements becoming instinctive. As time ticked away, the nervous anticipation ebbing among my colleagues morphed into excited energy. Dish after dish flowed out of our stations, the momentum building like a wave ready to break upon the beach of hungry diners awaiting our creations. Suddenly, Elizabeth cut through the corridor like a magnetic storm, her dark brow furrowed and eyes narrowed. "You think this is a game? We can't just cover the sous chef's absence as if it's nothing. This is beyond a disaster, it's a catastrophe." Her voice clawed through the laughter and chatter, igniting the vibrancy around us into confusion. My heart sank again as the whispers of insecurity resurfaced like shadows. But Amelia remained steadfast, her composure unwavering as she faced Elizabeth. "This is just a challenge, not a catastrophe," she countered. "We adapt, we push through, and we deliver together." The tension between them was palpable, but I noticed a flicker of uncertainty wash over Elizabeth's defiant expression. For a moment it was as if understanding crackled in the air, but the pause was brief. Elizabeth's facade quickly rebounded, her eyes darting avariciously to Amelia's work, measuring and weighing her every move, the gears of jealousy clearly turning. "Just you wait. Let's see if you can sustain this momentum," she shot back, venom crawling into her voice, yet there was an unmistakable tremor lurking beneath her bravado. "I'll be watching." As if the kitchen itself had heard the challenge, we doubled down on our efforts. The clock ticked down toward service, and the energy around us crackled like an electric storm, fear mingling with adrenaline, uncertainty with hope, when the head chef called out, "Time." It felt like the world around us inhaled sharply, suspended for a heartbeat. I stole a glance at Amelia, her confident demeanor held a steadying presence around us, and I felt encouraged to step more boldly into my role. Right before the service began, Amelia turned to me and gripped my shoulder, her eyes burning bright. "Tonight, we don't just serve food. We serve our hearts, our passion. Let's show them who we really are." As we hustled into the dining area, plates gleaming with delicacies of our labor, the anticipation ignited a fire within me. For a fleeting moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, a spark of hope, that is, until I heard someone from the back of the room whisper, "Did you hear the rumor? There's been an incident with one of the diners. Someone is gone." The revelation hit me like a bucket of ice water, stark and surreal. I glanced toward the back of the dining room where anxious murmurs began to swell. The sudden elevation in tension was suffocating, a threatening wave crashing through our newfound rhythm. With my heart nearly in my throat, I could only hope that this wouldn't unfold into the catastrophe Elizabeth warned us about. The evening had barely begun, yet the uncertainty loomed over us, dragging with it a promise of conflict that felt almost imminent, as if the shadows from the kitchen had now pursued us into the light. The dining area, once teeming with anticipation, shifted into an arena of muted conversations and furtive glances. It felt as though the very air turned dense, heavy with unsaid fears. My fingers fidgeted with the edge of my apron, each tiny movement a desperate attempt to distract myself from the unease that wrapped around my chest like a vice. "Gone." The word slipped from my lips, though I barely recognized the sound of my own voice. As I searched the crowd of diners for some sign of the commotion, I caught Amelia's eye. She mirrored my anxiety, her brows knitting tighter in concern. With a flick of her wrist, she gestured for me to remain focused. "Stay with me, Grace. Our service isn't over yet," she urged, bringing me back from the precipice of panic I had nearly fallen into. "We keep moving forward." But the tension from the startled diners was palpable. I watched as Elizabeth moved through the crowd, her demeanor now icy as she absorbed every whispered rumor that trickled past our guests, her eyes scanning for weakness. It looked as if she had transformed into a hawk, circling with a predatory gaze, ready to pounce at any sign of distress. Minutes crawled by as we worked through our service, the plates leaving the kitchen with precision, yet every satisfied and delicious from the diners felt like a fragile victory. For undercurrents of uncertainty flowed in tandem with the honest compliments. I could see it in Amelia's eyes, she felt it too. The night was spiraling, and no matter how perfectly our dishes were executed, we were teetering on the edge of a chaos that felt far beyond culinary. "Grace, I need you to take over the dessert station for a moment. I've got to check something in the back," Amelia said, her voice a firm whisper, laced with urgency. The weight of her trust burgeoned in my heart, and despite the tremors of anxiety coursing through me, I nodded, determined to do her proud. I quickly moved to the dessert station, gathering my bearings and organizing the intricate arrangements of sweet treats waiting to be plated. It was a small oasis of familiarity amidst the mounting tide of chaos. With each scoop of whipped cream and dash of chocolate drizzle, I allowed myself to find solace in the rhythm of my work. The dishes were beautiful, and for a fleeting moment, I lost myself in the process, almost forgetting the turmoil swirling outside my bubble. It was then that I overheard a conversation. Two cooks stationed near the entrance exchanged hushed words, concern cloaked in half-joking laughter. No way, it's true. Like, who just disappears without a trace? One said, rolling her eyes. The guy at table 6. I heard he was choking, the other replied, glancing sideways towards the dining area, her voice sinking to a whisper. He just dropped. A wave of goosebumps broke over me, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life. My heart raced again, but this time it wasn't just about the service, it was about something far more serious. I peered out into the dining room where hurried footsteps of waiters moved frantically, shots of panic lighting their faces as they whispered animatedly. Just as I was processing the gravity of the situation, Amelia returned, her face pale but composed. Grace, she said, steadying herself on the counter beside me, we need a backup plan. Backup plan? I echoed, confusion knitting my brow. For what? She hesitated a beat, eyes glancing toward the back of the kitchen, as if she could hear the commotion escalating. If the diner really did choke, if there's a need for emergency protocols, we can't afford to falter. We need to stay operational, no matter what happens out there. The weight of her words hung in the air, a stark reminder of our reality. We were not just chefs tonight, we were the lifeblood of a system that could unravel at any moment. Before I had a chance to respond, Elizabeth swooped back in, her demeanor shifting under the new landscape of anxiety. This is a disaster, Amelia. We can't pretend everything is fine when there's a serious issue at hand. The owners are freaking out. Her voice rose. Above the kitchen clamor, her frustration spilling over like boiling water, Amelia locked eyes with me, an unspoken challenge passing between us. We have to ensure our team is focused. Elizabeth, no matter what we face out there, we deliver exceptional service in here. We support each other. That's our priority. Elizabeth's expression flickered with defiance. Do what you want, but if this goes south, you'll be the first to drown, she shot back, directing her fury at Amelia before striding away with a renewed march, her heels clicking against the floor as if sealing some unholy pact with fate. That I fought against the sense of dread blooming within me, pushing back tears that threatened to spill over. Just then, a soft voice broke through my thoughts like sunlight filtering through darkness. Hey. It was Jim, the dishwasher often overlooked, yet standing strong with a woven apron draped over his sturdy frame. You got this. You're doing a great job. He tucked his hands into his pockets, a shy grin capped by the warmth of unexpected kindness. That I blinked, surprised by his words. Thank you, Jim. That means a lot. Just keep your head up. No one can crush you if you don't let them, he said, pointing over at the mess of chaos unfolding through the doors into the dining area. And don't forget, you're not alone. Surprisingly, his sincerity infused me with a rush of fortitude. The weight of the looming storm began to lessen, if only slightly. I nodded, steadied my breath, and returned to the plated desserts before me, focusing on each detail as if it was a lifeline in the swelling sea of uncertainty. But as I glanced back at the dining room, I noticed something unsettling. A figure rushed toward the exit, a tall man with frantic movements. The energy shifted as the whispering gathered pace. Someone's leaving early, I observed aloud, feeling an uneasy flutter in my stomach. Almost instantly, the sudden sound of glass shattering cut through the air. Nervous gasps erupted around us, echoing through the kitchen, as the atmosphere thickened into an intensity one hadn't anticipated. As the shouts erupted, it became unmistakably clear the night had morphed into a crucible filled with fear. And in that moment, I realized the fragile foundation we'd built earlier was perilously close to collapsing. Jim, stay close, I managed to stammer, my heart sinking with every new tremor in the room. Something's not right, and just when I expected the turmoil to deepen, a scream sliced through the air, a shattering cry that echoed through the kitchen, reverberating deep into my bones. I froze, dread pooling like lead in my stomach, evidence of the chaos looming closer than ever before. As I turned toward the source, a horrifying thought came crashing into my mind. In this labyrinth of emotional layers and intricate dynamics, our shared moment at the counter was just the beginning, an innocent fragment before igniting the flames of something infinitely darker. And I knew, if we didn't act now, everything we worked for could slip through our fingers in a heartbeat. The clamor surged like a tidal wave crashing against a brittle shore, engulfing everything in its path. I was still reeling from the piercing scream when I glanced over at Amelia, her eyes wide as she assessed the chaos brewing in the dining area. Suddenly, uncertainty flooded in, leaching away the last vestiges of calm that had gathered in our small sanctuary of desserts. What do we do? I asked, my voice tight, anxiety prickling at the edges of my mind. I desperately sought reassurance in Amelia's steadfast gaze, hoping to tether my spiraling thoughts to the ground. Let's keep our focus on our tasks, she replied, her demeanor steadier than I felt. We can't lose control over what we can manage. Get these desserts out, Grace, the demand spoke volumes, threading a sense of purpose into the chaos. I took a deep breath and plunged back into the rhythm of whipping, garnishing, and plating, my hand guided by the muscle memory built from countless shifts in this very kitchen. But the clattering plates and murmurs from the dining room seeped in, tugging at my composure whenever I stole a glance towards the scene unfolding just outside the kitchen doors. Yet, even as panic festered just beyond our thin veil of culinary art, we forged on. I turned to find Jim, dabbed in flour and sweat, hoisting a stack of clean plates with determination. He met my gaze, a flicker of encouragement passing between us. It was an unspoken kinship amidst the storm. Another clap of thunder echoed from the dining area, followed by a surge of voices growing more frantic. My heart raced as I tried to piece together what was happening. Suddenly, Elizabeth burst through the door, her face a mask of distress. Amelia. There's a serious situation. We need all hands on deck, can you clarify? Amelia's authority rang through the kitchen, demanding clarity amidst the encroaching dread. There's been an incident, it's bad, Elizabeth gasped, her words tumbling out as if they were anchored in a tide of urgency. That man at table 6, he's gasping for breath. My stomach dropped. The choking incident echoed in my mind, a haunting specter that had threatened to pull us under since we first heard of it. I fought the urge to cover my ears, drowning out the swirling echoes of fear rising from every corner. Have you called for help? Amelia prompted, her voice all business, tempered with authority. Yes, I did. But it's taking too long. We have to do something ourselves. Elizabeth pleaded, desperation coloring her tone. In that moment, time fractured, and my heartbeat thundered in my ears. I had studied life-saving techniques during our training when I first set foot in this establishment, but the knowledge felt like grains of sand slipping through my fingers. A rush of primal fear mixed with determination surged within me. Grace, Amelia called to me, her tone pulling me from the fog of my thoughts. You know how to help, don't you? All I remember is some choking techniques, I mumbled, panic clawing at the edges of my resolve, a deep-rooted fear creeping around my heart. Then we'll do it together, she said, each word anchoring my swirling thoughts. You take the lead. Show me. With newfound courage being ignited in my chest, I nodded, wheeling toward the chaos outside. I could barely grasp the weight of responsibility resting heavy on my shoulders, an unyielding promise to help. But as I approached the door, I felt a steadying presence beside me. Jim. Let's do this. I'll be there to help, he said, indomitable in his spirit, his hand lightly pressing against my back. Together, we stepped through the threshold, an uncharted territory of turmoil awaiting us. The dining area felt simultaneously foreign and familiar, overflowing with panicked whispers and trepidation, faces growing increasingly pallid. Lurking in the center of the storm, the table 6 held a figure slumped over his chair. Witnessing the scene brought a heavy knot to my throat. The man weaved in and out of consciousness, hands clenching at his throat while a woman beside him choked back sobs, a stark mix of grief and terror that sliced through the crowd. "Step aside!" I shouted without thinking, my voice cutting through the clamor, startling those around me. The swirl of sounds dimmed momentarily, eyes shifting toward me and Jim as we approached, "Clear a space." Jim echoed, his confidence augmenting mine, and somehow I felt the tremor within me begin to subside that I knelt beside the man, a cold sweat coating my palms. "Sir, can you hear me?" I called, heart racing. He gasped for air, nodding shakily in response. "I'm going to help you." "Jim, keep the area clear." As Jim positioned himself at the edge, I directed my focus back to the man. "We're going to perform the Heimlich maneuver. I need you to follow my lead." With a grounding breath, I locked my arms around his waist, my pulse roaring in my ears. I pulled inward, firm and resolute, repeating the movements as I'd practiced so many times. But the air felt heavy, my doubt creeping under the darkness like a loathsome shadow. "Come on," I willed within myself, gritting my teeth, focusing on the man's terrified face. The crowd held its breath, and as I executed another thrust, I could feel hope slipping like grains of sand, and then, just when I thought all was lost, a loud cough erupted from the man, a robust sound that echoed through the silence. Relief flooded the room while tears prickled at the corners of the woman's eyes. He doubled over, gasping, but he was breathing again. For a heartbeat, I felt a rush of triumph swell within me, a fleeting moment of hope amidst the wreckage of the evening. But just as quickly, the fragile victory collapsed as the front door burst open and a swarm of paramedics poured into the room, shattering the moment with their hurried authority. "Clear the area. We need space." Their voices cut through like knives, and the cacophony returned, shadowing the relief I had so briefly held. In the whirlwind of activity, I felt a soft tug on my sleeve. Turning, I was met with Elizabeth's intense gaze, her expression etched with a mix of fear and respect. "Grace, you really are something else," she whispered, seemingly humbled amidst the unfolding chaos, but I couldn't bask in the praise, my thoughts whirring, burdened by what came next. Questions would be asked, the chaos would linger, and the night of splendid service had transformed into an uncertain ordeal. The realization loomed, beneath the surface of any triumph lay still waters of strife, and I was acutely aware that more upheaval was poised just beyond the horizon. Little did I know, beneath the fray of heightened emotions and uncertainty, the man I had saved bore a secret that would intertwine our lives in ways I could scarcely imagine, a secret that would unravel the very threads of everything we thought we knew about this night, forever altering the path ahead. And as the paramedics rushed to take control, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the shadows, unseen confrontations simmered, ready to bring more upheaval. In the space of fleeting moments built on courage, I could feel the undercurrent tugging at the strings of fate, whispering that this was only the beginning of our trials. The aftermath of the chaos settled like a heavy fog in the dining room, thick with anxiety, uncertainty, and an unshakable tension. I stood on the periphery, staring into the faintly illuminated chaos where the paramedics worked diligently to assist the man who had almost choked to death. My body was still vibrating with the adrenaline of just moments earlier as I watched the fluorescent lights flicker overhead, illuminating the faces of concerned onlookers. "Grace," Amelia's voice emerged from behind me, tender yet firm, pulling me from my reverie. She stepped closer, her brow knit with worry. "You did everything you could. I'm so proud of you." Proud? I could barely wrap my head around that compliment. Fear and helplessness still cloaked my thoughts like a shroud. I nodded, the corners of my mouth twitching upwards almost involuntarily, but my heart felt heavy. I shouldn't have let it get that far," I murmured, barely audible over the rising din of voices. "What if I hadn't been ready?" What ifs won't help," she interrupted, her words gentle yet resolute. "You acted when it mattered the most." Just then, the gurney rolled past, the man now seemingly stable but still surreal in his fragility, surrounded by bustling paramedics. The moment of triumph I had felt in saving him now felt distant, overshadowed by the realization that the night was far from over, the threads of control fraying at the edges. As I turned to look once more at the man, I locked eyes with the woman beside him, a familiar yet unrecognizable expression etched across her face. In that instant, flickers of recognition sparked within me. I startled at the realization, she was Evelyn, a prominent figure in our city's charitable events. I recognized her from articles, her poised demeanor usually radiating confidence and strength. My heart sank. What if this incident would be plastered across the tabloids tomorrow? The implications cascaded in my mind. Would we be blamed? How would it affect the restaurant? My mind turned as I sought solace in the only familiar presence standing close by, Jim. I can't shake the feeling that this night might destroy us, I confessed, a tremor threading through my voice. What if this spirals out of control? Stay in the moment, Grace. Jim's deep-set eyes exuded a calm that washed over me, a balm against my inner turmoil. We did something good tonight, even if the storms feel unforgiving right now. A flicker of warmth ignited in my heart, steeling me against the tempests of uncertainty. Together, we stood amid the chaos, grounding ourselves. But as I took a moment to gather my bearings, I felt a press of motion at my back. Elizabeth approached once more, urgency commanding her tone. "We need to talk," she said, her face drawn tight with concern. "It's about the owners. Things might get messy." I caught myself holding my breath as tension tightened around us. "What do you mean?" "After the paramedics, the owners want to have an emergency meeting," she confessed, biting her lip anxiously. "There are accusations about negligence. And it's not what we did, it's about who we are." "Accusations? Why would anyone think that?" I felt a chill ripple through me. This was a place built on gratitude and passion, the kind that had fueled so many of our late nights in the kitchen. But beneath the surface, more was churning. "People love to point fingers, Grace," Elizabeth said, her voice low but laced with urgency. "And with Evelyn involved, it's only going to draw more attention. What if they associate us with her or the event?" Vulnerabilities hung exposed in the air around us. A tempest of emotions washed through me at her words. The sense of helplessness returned, clawing at my insides. What should I do? "Just be careful. If they come for any of us, keep your head above water. Remember who we are as a team." Her eyes flickered with fear similar to the shadows scuttling around the room where doubts lurked just out of sight. Before I could respond, a familiar figure caught my eye. A tall, handsome man in a tailored suit now rushed into the room, drawing the attention of everyone present. It was Malcolm, the head of the restaurant's board, his features etched with a seriousness that conveyed urgency. He scanned the area with an intensity that sent shivers cascading down my spine. I suddenly recalled him speaking at the staff meetings about protecting the reputation of this establishment. As he ascended upon the scene with a silent storm carried on his shoulders, I felt the sense that the night could devolve into some unavoidable confrontation. "Amelia. Elizabeth. Grace." Malcolm's voice boomed, strong and authoritative. "We need to gather everyone. There will be an investigation into what happened." A wave of dread washed over me, twisting tightly around my core. The reality settled with an unbearable weight. We were about to face the fallout from an incident that had unfolded in what felt like both moments and lifetimes. I turned back to Jim, my heart racing, mouth suddenly parched. "This isn't over," I whispered, a tingle of anxiety creeping in. A tight knot tightened in my chest, as uncertainty loomed, waiting to unveil its hidden challenges at the most unexpected times. As the fire crackled through the dining room and shadows lengthened, I knew one thing for certain: while we had quelled one storm tonight, another, the bigger, more chaotic kind, was looming just beyond the horizon, an uninvited guest to our once happy gathering. The kitchen buzzed with anxious energy that seeped into the marrow of my bones. Malcolm's presence dominated the room, an unyielding storm as he gathered the chefs for a tense meeting. Every heartbeat echoed within me, reminding me of the challenge that lay ahead. We had risen through the chaos of the evening, only to stand on the precipice of scrutiny, and the fear hovering in the air felt more palpable than ever. My stomach churned, every fear ID buried clawing its way to the surface. "Listen up," Malcolm commanded, his deep voice slicing through the din. "We need to address the incident tonight. With Evelyn's choking situation, there will be inquiries. Our reputation is at stake, and I expect full cooperation." As he spoke, my thoughts raced. The swirl of plates and flavors, the camaraderie we had built, it all felt like a fragile dream now, teetering on the edge of collapse. I'd tasted the sweet nectar of accomplishment when I had aided that man, yet I couldn't escape the dread curling tightly in my chest. Each word out of Malcolm's mouth tightened the noose of anxiety further. "Everyone will be formally interviewed," he continued, adjusting his tie, pacing slowly before us as if he were sizing us up. "Be aware of what you say. Any inconsistency could lead to blame, and I cannot defend incompetence." Elizabeth stood nearby, her jaw clenched, and I could see her frustration gnawing at her. "This is absurd. We acted in good faith, and there are complexities here. Good faith doesn't matter in a court of perception." Malcolm snapped, turning sharply. I felt each word ricochet against my will, a harsh reminder of the world we inhabited, where human life intertwined with the relentless pursuit of perfection and reputation. Determined not to crumble, I decided to voice my truth. "But we did everything we could," I interjected, my voice steadying, even as I felt wobbly. "I performed the Heimlich maneuver. We saved him. Isn't that what matters?" Malcolm's eyes pinned on me, and in that moment, I could sense the subtle shift in the room. "And how do we know that? How do we prove it?" he replied, his tone firm but softening just slightly. "We are not just judged by our intentions, we are judged by outcomes." Was that all this truly boiled down to, outcomes? With that thought weighing me down, I glanced around at my colleagues. Unlike most nights enveloped in laughter and bonding over shared tasks, there was palpable fear in the air, blame hovering like ominous shadows waiting to engulf us at any moment that we need to speak the truth about what happened. Jim chimed in, his voice unwavering, filling the void that hung heavily among us. "We did what we could, and if that's still not enough, then we need to stand united." That I caught Amelia's eye as she nodded in agreement. With her presence beside me, I felt an unyielding tether of solidarity that rallied the other chefs to raise their heads higher and forge strength from the flames of our shared experiences. "Gather your thoughts," Malcolm instructed, pacing deeper into the room, his shoulders squared in resolve, "and remember, there are witnesses. We kitchen staff will tell the same story. No one person is alone in this." Time slipped through my fingers, each ticking second fully charged with the weight of impending deliberation. As we prepared for our interviews, we exchanged glances meant to convey shared strength, bolstering our courageous facade whilst acknowledging the fear that clawed beneath. When the investigators called for us one at a time, I felt my heart race again, memories of the evening replaying in flashbacks. Each chef's story would be dissected, picked apart, vulnerable to scrutiny, yet I sensed a flicker of hope still burning deep within us. Together, we forged a protective shell surrounding our vulnerability, an alliance born from the chaos we had endured. When my turn arrived, the sterile office and folks at the table across from me felt like a courtroom. As they began with their questions, I dug deep, remembering the weight of the man I had aided, the panic leaking into the air, and the moment life teetered on the edge. "Grace, can you tell us what transpired?" The investigator leaned in, pen poised, eyes searching. That I took a steadying breath. "I did what I could. He was choking, and I performed the Heimlich maneuver to the best of my ability. The paramedics arrived, and they handled the situation thereafter." My voice quivered, but I held my ground, conviction unwavering. Their eyes narrowed, but I knew I had recounted the truth. There were circumstances beyond our control that night, decisions made in a swirling tempest of chaos. When the questions had been answered, I felt a quiet resolve settle over me, a sense of pride surging within. As the evening wore on, I gathered alongside my colleagues once more, heart still vulnerable, yet bristling with unbroken resolve. We were emerging from the darkest depths of anticipation, and I found solace in the warmth of camaraderie amid uncertainty. In that moment, Elizabeth stepped forward and regarded us with sincerity. "I'm sorry for how I acted earlier," she said, her gaze locking onto each of us. "This fight isn't just for each individual, it's for every person in this kitchen, not just our livelihoods, but for our integrity." I saw the shift within her eyes, an acknowledgement of our collective struggle that transcended competition. For the first time, I felt the weight of the night dissolve just a little, replaced by an ember of unity, flickering fiercely against the shadows. Amidst the swirling emotions and challenges, something unexpected erupted in that kitchen. A fierce resilience blossomed from our hearts, forged through the crucible of fragility. We were all haunted by our own fears, but the vulnerability tethered us with an undeniable strength that we now wore like armor against uncertainty. As the evening drew to a close, and though uncertainty still loomed ahead, ominous and unyielding, I also felt a sense of resolution. It was uncharted ground we found ourselves walking. This was just the beginning of rewriting our story, casting light on the path we had yet to discover together. Together, we would bake our future anew, standing tall amidst the embers of our shared spirit. I knew, like every spectacular dish created in that kitchen, we would season our lives together with love, resilience, and the warmth that only comes from those who refuse to be silenced. At that moment, I was filled with profound clarity. Life was not just about outcomes, but about the bonds we forged, unwavering partnerships built in the fires of chaos. And as I became enveloped in the strength of our unity, I realized this was not just the end of a chapter, but the emergence of something more, something that would forever ground us in the notion that we were unstoppable when we stood together. For we were not just surviving, we were baking a legacy, one dish at a time.